Good morning, folks, and thanks for joining us again for another Workshop Wednesdays. Before I start, I just got a couple housekeeping things to get over here. And Gary, we did see your request that you submitted yesterday, so we'll be covering your question in the webinar today. First things first, we're going to be featured on Online Trader Central next week on Tuesday, October 9th at 4:30 Eastern Daylight Time. And this is basically going to be like an introduction to BloodHound. So if those of you that are in the room that are brand new to BloodHound and are looking to know a little bit about the features, or rather sort of what it could do for you rather than the detailed features, you could join us at the webinar. And if you have any friends or know that anybody that may be interested, I mean, feel free to just send them this link and have them join us. So I'll just put the link in the chat there. The more users that are using BloodHound, the more of a community we have, and the more people understand it, the more we can all sort of help each other out. So it's a good thing for everybody. Those of you that are already using it and are customers of BloodHound, it's one thing that we've been toying around with is the idea of having a like a systems or trade systems marketplace or a central hub where people can upload and create trade systems and trade them. But before we do that, we'd like to have kind of a pretty solid base of users that are using the product. So if you know anyone that could use the product or could benefit from it, please feel free to pass this around and to have it, to pass it to your friends. It'd be greatly appreciated. Other than that, we've been working diligently on 1.1. Some of you may have noticed that we've updated our website a little bit with some new graphics and whatnot. But 1.1 is on track for beta at the middle of the month, and we just finished putting in the time solver, which some of you guys have been requesting. That's the idea of being able to restrict your system from trading when it's out of session. But it's those of you that are very familiar with NinjaTrader know that you can actually set your charts to not trade or not to show data when it's not in session. But the problem is it messes up the indicators, so you don't get the indicator data, or the indicators will basically skip those, have gaps in the data for out of session data. And for those of you that don't like that but still want to be able to restrict your system from trading out of session, we now offer that solution. So other than that, I think that's all we got for housekeeping items. So I'm going to pass the torch over to Zach, who will take it away, and he'll be covering basically questions that we've found submitted from users.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. Let's see. All right, let me switch over here. And all right. So I'm gonna take care of Gary's question first. So let me undo some of the stuff I got in the chart here, so I can start from scratch. All right. So Gary's got a question. He wants to be able to detect when price is approaching or bouncing, actually when price is hitting the 34 EMA using the support resistance solver. So I'm going to actually demonstrate two different ways of doing this. Now, and you'll see what the difference is here. So let me get the EMA on my chart, and we want the 34. All right, let me minimize these. So these other two charts, excuse me, something I'm going to work on after getting this question answered here. All right, there's our EMA, and essentially we're wanting to detect this type of area there and there, something like that. and of course what I'm going to show, unfortunately you're going to get signals all in this area as well. So, when price is consolidating around your EMA, that's going to wreak havoc. So, but anyways, I'll show you guys the core solver to get this done. So, all right, let me give this a name. And let's see. Something like that, I guess. Yes, Rick, the EMA 34 period. All right, so Gary was asking how to do it using the support resistance solver, I believe. Let's see. Yes, the support resistance solver. So let's use that solver first. All right, and rename this. And so when you're using the support resistance and you're trying to detect proximity, in other words, when price is close to your support resistance line, that you want to put it in tailwind mode. So headwind mode is to determine how far away you are from your support resistance line, and tailwind mode is to determine how close you are to your support resistance lines. And I'm going to switch this over to ticks. Ticks is easier to see. And let's see, what instrument do I have? I've got the CL. So let's look for 3 ticks. I'll make it pretty tight, and we'll see how that works out here. All right, tailwind mode, 3 ticks, and I'm going to use an indicator. So I need to use the indicator on, and then you'll see this new section opens up. Switch this over to the EMA. And 34. Now, I'm not sure if you noticed, but when using the support resistance solver, this is the one solver where no plot is selected by default. So just keep in mind when you're using the support resistance solver that you do have to go in here and select which plots you want to use. So I'm going to use all, since this is just a moving average with only one plot. And let's see here. All right, so here we go. We got some signals already. This guy didn't fire because the support resistance solver uses the closing price. All right, so the closing price being right here didn't get within 3 ticks. It looks like it was about 4 ticks. And then this bar, the closing price, the bar had already bounced off the EMA. So this bar closed up. So we kind of missed it there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another way to kind of do the same thing, where you can use closing price, or you could use the low of the bar or the high of the bar and see how close the low or the high of the bar gets to your support resistance line. So the benefit of using the support resistance solver is that you can select multiple plots. So if we're using, say, the pivot indicator, so if you're using your pivots, right, you have all these lines that come out of that indicator. So I can select all, and this one solver would analyze all of these resistance lines, all in one solver. So that's the benefit of using the support resistance solver. But let me put this back on the EMA here. Oh, what did I do? So make sure that's okay, that's okay. Yeah. Okay, everything's okay. I cannot remove this. Not sure what that is, but everything seems to be working. All right, so the other way to analyze how close you are to a resistance line is using the indicator comparison. So we can compare how close price is to an indicator line. So the first way, I'll do it just using the closing price. Keep it kind of simple. And I'll be looking for 3 ticks. Need to switch this over to our EMA. All right, 34. And I'm only using the large amount, so that means I need to set this to 0 and set this one to 0. And let me turn the support resistance solver off. And, oh, okay. So, right, just remember, the default setting for the comparison solver is, A greater than B. So right now it's just telling us when price is greater than our support resistance solver. But first let me name this and I'll show you how to fix that. So we're looking at the close to the EMA 34. So what we're wanting to look at, essentially we're wanting to know when A and B are essentially equal to each other or neutral. So I do need to set this to 3 ticks. So if I use this output setting here, it's going to look for when the closing price is in between the small amounts. So we can say A greater than B for the small amount and A less than B for the small amount. And our small amount is 3 ticks. So it's going to look for A within B by 3 ticks. In other words, it's going to be looking for when closing price is within or approximately equal to the EMA within 3 ticks. And we can see here we got some areas marked here. And we also need to add the short sides to this as well. So you can see when we're using the comparison solver, we have both a long and a short signal. So using it this way, it just says that this condition has been met, but it doesn't tell us the direction of the trade. And you don't need to have every solver tell you the direction of the trade, right? Like I could use the slope of the EMA to tell me the direction of the trade. Or I could be looking for, to determine whether the closing price previously was higher than the EMA to tell me the direction of the trade. All right, so now this is just using the closing price. So we have some signals, but we can see here, right, in this area here, we're missing, a couple of key bars here. And once again, we're missing this guy. So I'll show you how to pick up on these these bars here that aren't giving us a signal. So let me copy this, turn the other one off, and this one I'm going to be looking at the high and the low price. High and the low. And how I can do that is I need to put this back on indicator. And we have an indicator specifically for doing this job, and it does other things as well. So if we go down to SI, and I'm looking for SI chameleon, we can see that SI chameleon gives us the closing price, the high, the low, the median price, the mid price, and the open, typical, and weighted. So if you want to, if you need to know, or if you want to find out what the weighted, how the weighted price is calculated, or the typical, right? There's 4 special prices here that come from NinjaTrader. So if you look in NinjaTrader's help documentation, they give you the formulas on how these prices are calculated, right? So BloodHound doesn't calculate these prices. NinjaTrader calculates these prices internally and just feeds them out to you. So, and so some of the other special features about Chameleon is it has a look back, so you can look back a certain number of bars. But here's the real key: is, let me slide this over, is that you can use an alternate instrument or time frame. So if I set this to true, I can go in and I could pick a different instrument. So I can be comparing another instrument to the instrument that's on my chart. And I can compare any price value I want of a different instrument. So that's kind of the real power behind SI Chameleon and why we broke it out as a separate indicator. So I could, let's see, this is CL. Let's see, so I could be comparing 2 different months of the CL. Right, so I have the chart set to 11/12, and I could compare it to the next upcoming month. And then I can select whatever bar type that I want to use. So I could put this on another 5 range, and then select what price value I want to analyze. So I guess typically you'd be comparing the close of one instrument to the closing price of another instrument. So I'm probably pretty soon here I'll probably do a workshop just kind of on this indicator and on a couple of other indicators that we have. But for now, let's just get back to analyzing this EMA here. So I want to analyze, so for longs, when I'm looking for long signals, I want to see where the closing price is. I mean the low, the low. And for shorts, I want to look at the high of the candle. And there we go. Yeah, so there's our signals now for this candle, and even the tail of this guy was within 3 ticks of the EMA. Nope, we got a signal there. So you can see that we're getting a lot more detections of price near this EMA when we're using it in this fashion, using it with the comparison solver. So, and let's see, I saw some questions or comments popping up. Yes, Rick, we do record the webinars. And Randy, so with Chameleon, you can track the spread of 2 different instruments. Yes, Randy, yes, you can. So, Rick, I can kind of just start off this workshop without showing you guys, some of you new guys, around. So let me kind of pause for a moment on what I'm doing here and introduce you guys to some resources for you. All right, so one resource is I have a Skype account, and so this Skype account I use for BloodHound and shark indicators. So if you see me online, that means I'm available. So I better take myself off here. So feel free to add me if you're using Skype. Right, this is my Skype name, Zach White, SI. So Zach White and SI is for shark indicators. I'll leave that up for a moment. And next, let me show you the website. I'll show you some resources on the website here. All right, so this is the home page. So the recorded webinars, you can go to BloodHound, Learn BloodHound, and over here you see webinars. So these are all the recorded webinars. And we host all of our videos up on YouTube. So you can just go to YouTube and search for shark indicators. You'll find us, and you'll see all of our recorded videos up there. Right? This is just a short recent list. If you click on the recorded webinars, it'll take you into the full list of all of them that we've done. And so Rick, for you, and I do see another new name in the group here. I just recently wrapped up I think a 4 or 5 week workshop where I went through each solver one at a time. Right, so this is last week's, and these are the last 2 solvers that I covered. So if you scroll down a little ways, there we go. So here's the first workshop where I started with the first 3 solvers on the list. And it says right here. So these are the solvers I covered for this workshop. So you might want to go, start here and work your way up. And this guy right here, Jeremy was doing a demonstration of the new up-and-coming version 1.1. So this is just a product demo, so there's no, this doesn't cover any training in it. So you could skip this one if you want. And let me show you some other resources here. So on the support, well, actually, let me go back to BloodHound here. There's video tutorials. This is the best place to start. I'd recommend going through at least the first 2 videos on the tutorial before you start watching those workshops. And I just recently did a tutorial for the logic nodes, and Jeremy will be posting that here shortly in the next couple of days. Some other resources on the Contact Us page. If you have a question, this will send, using this page here, we'll send in a help ticket with your question, and both Jeremy and I can see both of these. And also Rick, if you need help getting started, I'd recommend you at least watch those 2 tutorial videos first, and then if you need some help kind of getting started, you can book an appointment with me right here using this button. And let's see. And then also on our support center, let me bring that up. If you go to the support forum up top, there's a tips and tricks section. So this was essentially, these were questions that we had, and I did a screenshot tutorial of how to answer, in answering these questions. So this is kind of another good resource to get you familiar with BloodHound. So, all right, well, so let me just kind of keep this short and wrap it up there with that. And I'll get back to the workshop here. Oops. All right, so Gary, I think that kind of gives you answers your question directly. So you know, just some suggestions in order to try and filter out, you know, this stuff here. What I've done is I would use a really short period EMA or some other kind of moving average and analyze what the short period moving average is doing. And when you can see that the short period moving average is, well, let me just actually add it on here. Seeing is worth 1,000 words, right? So let me just put short period 1 here. Like, let's see how 9 works out. Let's try 5. Okay. I wouldn't recommend the EMA because it's not very smooth. I think there's other moving averages that smooth things out a lot, like the zero lag EMA, like the JMA or the HMA, kind of smooth short periods out a little better. But you can use, in theory, you can use a short period, and you want to look for the short period essentially moving down or sloping down prior to getting your signal here. And so that'll tell you that price came up and then is pulling back to the EMA to look for these type of bounces. You know, like right here, this is a lot better. So you could look for this EMA making this, you know, nice clean pullback to your moving average, you know, right prior to the bar actually hitting your EMA. You can see, you know, you want to look for this clean short period moving average sloping down towards your EMA. Or if you're looking for the opposite direction, like this guy right here, this is a nice setup, right? And you can see how cleanly this moving average is moving up towards the EMA prior to, you know, giving you a signal here. So that's kind of one way that you can filter out this choppy, you know, garbage in here, stuff like that, stuff like this. All right, so let me, I'm going to move on to the next question, or the next part of this workshop. And let me find the chart. All right. So this question was submitted 2 weeks ago. And this is submitted by Willows. And he had a pretty good setup here on his chart. So I already have the chart already set up because it took me a lot longer to actually set the chart up than it does to actually build the solvers in BloodHound. So let me explain what I have here. So Willow's using multiple time frames, right? So I have this is on a 1 minute chart. So I have 2 indicators here. I'm using the MACD histogram and using the DM indicator on a 1 minute chart. And he has some kind of oscillator, something I don't have, so I just substituted the Elliott oscillator in here that he's looking at. And then he has the DM again on a 15-minute chart, and the DM, and he has that oscillator on a 60-minute chart. So I'm going to show how to put this all together. Let me minimize this, and I'm actually going to use this chart here to do this. All right, so you can see the indicators on here, like the one on the bottom, this oscillator, this Elliott oscillator on the bottom, right? I have the 60-minute plugged into it. So, and let's see what else. and this DM here, which is this DM right here, and I have the 15-minute plugged into it. So let me get BloodHound on the chart. All right. And first thing I want to do, I want to name it. And I'm going to take a shortcut here. Let's see, today's the 3rd. I'm just going to pick an old file and rename it. So here's today's workshop. All right, we have it named. Okay, so now I can start building the solvers for this system. So, you know, this setup here is pretty simple. It only looks complicated because we're using multiple time frames on the chart, but with BloodHound it's really simple. So I need to add a 15-minute and a 60-minute chart on here. So hit the chart button, and I can set this to 15 minutes. I can hit the chart button again and set this one to 60 minutes. All right. You'll notice that as soon as I hit the chart button and added another data series, that BloodHound gives me this warning here that I need to hit F5 to update the chart. So hitting F5, updating the chart, allows NinjaTrader to actually load the 15-minute and 60-minute data series into BloodHound as an indicator. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'm going to hit F5 now before I get started, because that way we can see things happening in real time. So when you see this message pop up, that means BloodHound's not going to give you feedback in real time. So I'll just hit F5, refresh the chart, and bring BloodHound back up. So, all right, I see some comments or questions coming in here, so let me just take a quick look. You're welcome, Gary. So, let's see. So, Gary, would I maximize the chart that I'm working with? Well, I can tell you on my, at least from vertically it's maximized. I don't have a maximized horizontally. So, okay, great. I always like to keep a little section open here so I can see both at the same time here when I'm working. All right, so let's throw this MACD histogram on here, and I believe what Willow was analyzing was just whether, pretty simple, whether the histogram was above 0 or below 0. And so when you're working with an indicator that's on a subpanel and you're analyzing, where indicators are in relationship to the value, in other words, the 0 line. So the 0 line is a threshold value. So for this one, I'm going to use the threshold solver. Let me just name this. Now, when I learned trading, I was always taught that this plot coming out of the MACD was called the histogram, but NinjaTrader calls it the diff, or difference, which technically that's what it is. It's the difference between the MACD line and the average line. So when you subtract the two from each other, that gives you the difference line. All right, let me plug the indicator in here, MACD, and I want to look at the difference plot. Hit OK. And let's see, just want to make sure I'm using the default settings here. Yep. So I'm looking at when the indicator is above 0, below 0. So my thresholds are set to 0, which is where I want them. And so I want a long signal when the indicator is above 0, and I want a short signal when the indicator is below 0. And there we go. So let me stretch this chart out here. It's a little easier to read. All right, so there's one on there. So the next I need to add the DM. So the DM, we're wanting to know when the DI plus plot, which is the blue one, is above the DI minus plot. It's pretty simple comparison there. So let me use the indicator comparison solver. And this is the DM indicator. Now I just need to set up my indicators. And yeah, so let's see, indicator A is going to be the DI plus, which is the blue line, and indicator B will be the DI minus plot. Get that on there, and the DI minus plot. All right, and I'm going to turn the MACD, the solver looking at the MACD threshold, off. That way I can just make sure that my DM comparison solver is doing what I want. And I'm going to shorten the name here. I like shortening the names up. Alright, so you can see, yep, when the blue line is above the red line, I'm getting long signals. And when the red is above, I'm getting short signals. And that's how the DM indicator works. All right, and then we need to add the Elliott oscillator on here. And once again, this is essentially, yeah, it's the same type of analysis as the MACD histogram. We're just wanting to know when this oscillator is above 0 or below 0. All right, so since I already have the MACD diff threshold solver already set up, I can copy it, and rename it, and then I'll change the indicator on here. And we can see this indicator has a bunch of different plots, and yeah, I think I just want to look at just the Elliott plot there. Oh, hit OK, and let's see how this looks here. Yeah, this looks correct. I can stretch this out a little bit just to see. Sometimes it's hard to tell, right? I got this one green bar, but if I stretched it out enough, you'd be able to see that the Elliott plot just barely crossed above the 0 line. Just barely. Hard to see, but it did. All right, now the next two solvers, so this DM is on the 15-minute chart, and we already have this one done up. So we're doing the same type of analysis as this indicator here on the 1-minute chart for this guy. So all I have to do is grab this one, copy it, select it, and then move it down and put it right underneath the 15-minute chart. And now we can see it firing off. And let's see, oh, let me turn this guy off. There we go. There, so that makes a little more sense. And you can see it's not changing colors exactly as how it plots, right? So that's just the time difference between a 1-minute plot and the 15-minute chart. The reason why that's occurring there. All right, we can see the DI minus, or the red plot, crossed above, and it gave us a short signal here for 1 bar on the 15-minute chart, and then it crossed back again. So all right, and then the last indicator to add is the Elliott oscillator again. So once again, I can select this guy, copy it, and move it down onto the 60-minute chart. Let me turn it on. And it's kind of hard to see. So actually, you know what? I think yeah, I think Willow originally had this on the 5-minute chart. So let me put this back to let me put this on a 5-minute chart, and it just makes it easier to see. So we can see that the 60-minute, this indicator on the 60-minute chart isn't quite so stretched out now. So let me scroll back in time and just check how this indicator's working. So there we go. There's the crossover. So we can see when the indicator crosses below 0, it's red. When it's above 0, it's green for our long signals. So essentially, that was it. You know, it's pretty simple in BloodHound to do. It was far more complicated to set this all up on a chart than it was in BloodHound. And then I think, if I remember correctly, I think Willow was just essentially just pulling all indicators, wanting them to all be in alignment for his trades. So this, I think I got the impression this was a kind of a discretionary type system that he's using here. He's using, I think he was using price action, you know, in combination with his indicators and higher time frames being in alignment. So like this guy right here, right? You can see this resistance line here. This looks like a nice trade. You got this breakout and all your indicators were in alignment. You know, so taking this as a discretionary trade looks like a pretty good one. You got a nice pullback to the support line where you could go long, and it just took off. So, all right, so Willow, that's that. Pretty simple. So, and all right, so I'm going to move on to another chart here where I got a question from Gary. So Gary's looking at price action. He's looking for higher highs, higher lows and lower highs. So let me bring this chart up here. So here's the chart, and I was just running through it last night. And so I'm gonna build this. So you can see I already have BloodHound on here, and I'm gonna rebuild this from scratch. So, but I just have this chart on here so you can see what the end result is that we're looking for. So let's see, yeah, so here we go. So we're marking higher lows and, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, here's the higher low. We're marking higher lows. Now the signals come afterwards, right? Because this is a price action thing. So price has to make a certain amount of movement before you can really determine whether this is a high or low. So as soon as price moves up, then that tells our indicators that, you know, a higher low was actually established. So the signals, you know, have to come a little delayed by a couple of bars. And the next thing we're looking for is these lower highs. All right, so we're getting a short signal on these lower highs. And let's see, I can see we got a higher high and a short. I'll have to come back to this and see if we can filter this guy out later on, but let me just show you how to build this system right here. So let's see, that's on the ES. All right, I'm going to use this chart to build this. So I saved myself a chart template so I can set the indicators up quickly here. So let me load up this chart template. There we go. All right, I'm going to delete these objects. All right. Before I get started, I see some comments or questions coming in. Let me look through these real quick. Let's see. So Gary's got a question. I attached a chart along with my question. Is BloodHound able to detect a lower high or higher low on an indicator? Yes, Gary, that's what I'm going to be showing you here. So, let's see, Gary, that is not swing, SI swing high low. Actually, it is, Gary. You can see on the chart I have SI swings high lows. So that's what this plot is here on the chart. What I've done is I've just customized the plot line type style to a way that I like looking at it. So, right, so you can see we got the tightest plots and the whitest plots, and I just changed the plots to hashes and dots. So the dots are the tightest plots, and the dashes, these dashes here, are the whitest plots. So let me kind of explain what those different plots are for you guys. So the whitest plots are plotting the outermost, or essentially it's plotting the lowest low and the highest high. All right, so the whitest plots, the dash, let me pull the indicator up. Right, so we have the whitest plots on the bottom. So this crimson hash, the whitest bottom, is this plot down here, this hash plot down here. And this forest green hash plot is the hash green plot up on top. And the dots are the tightest plots. So let me explain the difference between the two. So here's an example. So right here we have, all right, so right here you can see we have widest plot down below and a tightest plot up above. So the widest plots are always plotting the lowest low at the time and the highest high at the time. So when, and also it depends on what determines that. Oops, let me bring the indicator back up. So what's going to determine, what is the lowest low, right? Because if we're looking at this chart, it still looks like this is the lowest low right here, even though the plot moved up to here, which it's saying this is the lowest low. Well, the way that's determined is by the number of swings back that the indicator is analyzing, right? So if you increase this number, the number of swings that the indicator is looking at, it'll extend this lower low out even further. All right, so it's looking at 3 swings back. So let's see. So if we are, actually let me close this up and put this on the right edge of the chart. All right, so let's just say this is the current bar building. We can see we have one bar here and this plot here. So this is our widest bottom plotting, and this is our tightest bottom plotting. So as soon as this this bar opened up, what happened was, let's see, so the indicator is counting 3 swings back. So let me bring the indicator back up here. Right. So the indicator is counting 3 swings back. So the current swing is swing 1, and then swing 2, and then swing 3. So on this third swing, we can see this is our lowest low, looking back 3 swings. And the beginning of swing 1 right here created a higher low, so our tightest plot moved up to it. Now if we wanted to keep this lowest low as our, if we wanted the indicator to show this lowest low still, from this point we'd have to count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 swings. We'd have to count back 5 swings to keep this lowest low plotting as the lowest, as the widest bottom. So let me change that real quick, and we'll see what happens here. So there we go. So now this lowest low is still being plotted by the widest bottom. Now if I change this to 4, we'll see we lose it. So the widest bottom still moves up because we're counting back 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the 4th swing back actually ends on this highest high. But let me put it back to that. Oops. Hit apply. And all right, now let me close this up. And now let me kind of explain what the tightest plot is. So the dots are the tightest plots. So you can see the tightest plots are the, you could say, the internal lows and the internal highs. So this lower high, here was, when it was first detected, it was the tightest, it was being plotted by the tightest high. And up here we can see the hash, which is the widest high. So as soon as this lower high was determined, it became the tightest high moved down. So I hope I did an okay job on explaining that. Hopefully you guys kind of get the concept, the point. So I guess once again, let me change the indicator. It's a little easier to see if I change this to 5. And actually, let me make it really extreme. Let me go to like 9. There we go. So now, if we're analyzing 9 swings back, right, we can see this highest high was marked for a long time. And let's see here. Where? Yeah, you would think this plot would be up here. Maybe let me just check my indicator, make sure I don't have anything messed up on it. Number of swings, percent distance, swing sensitivity. Let's see. Now that all looks correct. Let's see. What can really get confusing is, since we're looking back 9 swings, sometimes it gets pretty hard to analyze, looking back 9 swings. Yeah, so since this is what's happening. Since I'm looking back 9 swings, I can see this lower high is still being picked up. This higher high didn't get picked up because it's a higher high. And then as we move along, eventually it jumps up, so it's looking at this lower high right here. So this lower high didn't get picked up, you know, until 9 swing points later, way back here, right? So looking at 9 really adds a lot of delay to the tightest swing points. So to really, I guess, do this properly, I need to have two instances of this indicator on the chart. So if I wanted to look at all these little this lower high, this lower high, and this lower high, I'd have to have a second instance of this indicator on the chart, and I'd have to set it to like its defaulted number of swings to 3. And then we can see how all these lower lows are picked up. Right, so yeah, just kind of something to work around there. But if I set this back to 9, essentially what I was trying to point out was, right, I can get these high points and low points to extend out further. And then if you're wanting to pick up these intermediary higher lows and lower highs, you would use a second instance of this indicator and set our number of swings back down lower. So set it to 3. And now we can see this lower low was picked up. This higher high was picked up as a tightest plot, and this this lower high was picked up, this higher high, so all these little swing points were picked up now by the tightest plot. Yeah. All right, so there's my explanation of how this indicator is working. So now let's get back to building the BloodHound system on looking for these. We're looking for, let's go back to the current. Let me find a good spot on the chart here. This looks like a good spot. So let me mark a few things. So this is what we're looking for right here. That guy and this guy. Yeah. And we can see that this is going to be determined on this bar, and this would be determined on this bar. So what we can see is happening is the tightest plot moves up to the next low point. And so when the indicator moves up, so we're going to tell BloodHound to look at this widest swing plot and compare it to the tightest plot here. And when the two differ, that is what we're looking for. We're looking for that difference. And we can see that previously the two will equal each other. Right? So we can see up here we have two bars where the tightest and the widest plot both equal each other. So we can look for that, and then we can look for the separation. So let me stop and look at some questions. I think some questions are coming in here. So let's see. DB. Let's see. DB's writing in here. Let's see. Can you show me from scratch how to set up the following? Two conditions: candle higher close and a numerical value on, let's see, so DB is looking for, let's see, two conditions: candle higher close and a numerical value on an indicator. Then there should be a red vertical line on the chart. Let's see, sure, DB. So DB, could you kind of give me an example here of what you mean by a numerical value on a variable indicator? So you're looking for a candle higher close and a numerical value. So, well, actually, I guess I can show you conceptually. I can show you that quickly here. So conceptually, let me get a new chart started. No. Let's see here. I'm going to pull up an oil chart. Uh-oh. Well, shoot. I lost Illustrator. Give me just a sec to pull the Illustrator back up. Sorry about this, guys. So I think it's time for me to reinstall Illustrator. I've been having some issues with it for a while now. So DB, what I'm going to show you. Okay, good. So you gave me an example. So you want to look for when the CC is above 50. Okay. Sounds good. So DB, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to be using the, let's see, you're looking for a higher close. So we can use the bar direction solver. That'll make sure the bar is in the correct direction. We can use the comparison solver, so we can compare, closing price of the current bar to the closing price of the previous bar to make sure that we've got a higher close. And then we can use the threshold solver to look for when an indicator is above or below a certain value. So those three indicators together is what I'll be showing you. So, okay, here comes NinjaTrader, and oh shoot, unfortunately my workspace didn't get saved. So let me get myself situated here again. Gary, yeah. Now that I have this chart back open again, what your questions was you were looking for bounces off of the moving average, and I do have this already done. I have a bunch of starter signals that we're going to put up with version 1.1 to give people a starting point of where people can start with. And so this is actually one of them that I've done up a while ago. So you can see we got this bounce off of the moving average. All right, so I already have the solver set up where I'm looking at this white short period moving average. I'm making sure the moving average is pulling back towards the red EMA, looking for a bounce off of it. So yeah, so I'll be posting these up on the website here pretty soon. All right, let's get rid of this, and we'll get back to this in a moment. Let's see. All right, so let me get to DB's question here. I'm going to strip this chart down. Let me add BloodHound onto the chart. And there we go. Oops. Remove that. All right, so DB, we're going to look at the CCI here. And the CCI. All right. Let me switch these. And now I'm going to work through this without naming this template here. All right, so let's look at finding the closing price greater than the previous closing price. So let's do a comparison. Add that on there. And I can change indicator A, change it from indicator to the closing price. And the same with indicator B section. And change this to the closing price. And, oh, that's right. It's not giving me it's not allowing me to look back one bar. So I'm going to have to put this back on the indicator. You see I have this displacement. So I can use this displacement, or I'm going to use SI chameleon to get me the closing price. So I mean chameleon, or I can use chameleon to look back. One to look back as well. So I'm going to use the displacement on here. It's just easier to see. So let me put this on the closing price. All right, and use a displacement of 1. And here we go. So we can see as the closing price moves higher, we're getting long signals here. All right. And then the next thing to look at, well, actually, I said dB, I'd show you another way. So we can also look at bar direction. However, bar direction may not always line up with the closing price being higher. Let's see. Also, you can see these dojis here. Let's see, is that a doji or a hammer? Forget my terminology, but we can see that, you know, when the open and the close are equal, the bar direction has no direction, so there's no plot from it. So the bar direction isn't exactly what you're wanting, right? Because this close is 1 tick higher than the previous close. But this is another option for you to use. So let's look at this. And let me rename it. So that's one part of your question. Now let me throw the threshold on there. All right, and so now let's look at the CCI threshold. And plug this CCI in here. All right, 14. And so we're looking for it to be above 50. And so we want a long signal when it's above 50. And we could also look for it being below 50. And we could look for a short signal when it's below 50. So there we go. All right, DB. So pretty simple to do. So, all right, so let me kind of go through this. And DB, I didn't see you in the beginning. I didn't see you in the room at the beginning. So just to recap, I just finished a 5-part workshop. So the recorded workshops are on our website, and you can go back to those workshops, and you can find the one where I talk about the threshold solver and learn a little more about the threshold solver and also the comparison solver. So, but just a quick tip here: when you're working with the threshold solver, you want your lowest number on the bottom and your highest number on the top, and so you always want to count from the lowest number all the way up to your highest number when you're using the threshold solver. If you kind of do things in between, you get some really weird results. So if I put this -50 like up here and zeros below it, you'd get some really weird results. So, but I have to put the 50 down, -50 down here and the 50 up top, because of the way this output works, right? So it says at A being 50, so at 50 or greater. So that's why I had to put 50 up here. And this right down here is at -50 or less. So I had to put the -50 here. So, all right, so that's that guy. Now let me get back to Gary's question here. And so I'm sorry guys, I'm not going to take any more questions until I get Gary's questions wrapped up. So we're getting close to closing time here. So I'm going to load that chart template back up here. So All right, so let me mark what we're looking for. We're looking for that guy, and we're looking for this guy here. So, all right, Randy's got a question here. Let's see. When you're looking for high or low example, I would filter it further to ensure that the bar closes below the last swing high. All right, Randy, I'll take a look at that after I kind of get the core signal here done. So that and that bar. Okay, so I'm marking the two bars here, but where our swing high-low indicator allows us to detect this high or low point. So, all right, let me change the name on this. I'll just overwrite this guy. Didn't have anything in it really anyways. So okay, so the first thing I'm going to look for, let me mark it with an arrow. First thing I'm going to be looking for is for the tightest plot and the widest plot to be equal. So I'm doing a comparison. I'm comparing two different plots. So let's see, widest to, I don't like using long names to, but what the heck. Okay, so for indicator A, let's see, trying to figure out, do I want to look at the widest or the tightest? And I'm going to be comparing the, I guess it doesn't really matter since I'm looking for them to be equal, but in theory, the tightest plot is the one that moves the most. So conceptually, it's good to put that one in indicator A. So the tightest plot is the one that moves the fastest. And typically, you want the fastest moving indicator in indicator A. So all right, get the indicator on there, and I'm looking at the tightest. So let's see. I'm looking at the bottom plots for a long signal. All right, so there we go. So I want the tightest bottom for a long, tightest top for a short. So the green dot is the tightest tops. All right, now I need to set this guy for the widest plots. And let's see, all right, so set that like that. All right, so widest bottoms for longs, widest tops for shorts. And there we go. So the default settings for the comparison indicator work pretty good. All right, so we can see here when the two plots are equal, it's giving us a short. Oop, looks like I have it backwards. Oh, no, we're looking for the two plots to be equal. All right, so the default indicator here is looking for A being greater than B. So I need to set these to 0, and I'm looking for the two plots to be equal. So I'm going to use the neutral. Set this to, there we go. So there we go. So now we're getting a long plot when the bottom plots are equal, and we're getting a short plot. We're getting a short plot when the tops are equal. So there we go. Yep. Okay. Now, remember, so we're actually looking for the signal to occur on this bar marked by the green arrow. So when this bar actually occurs, we're actually going to be looking back for the two bottom plots to be equal. We're actually going to be looking back one bar. So what I need to do is displace both of these by 1. So now you can see that we have this green bar, or the long signal, moved to the right by 1 bar. All right, so now we're getting a green or a long signal on the bar, on this bar, that we're actually looking for a long signal when the two different plots differ from each other. All right. So let's see, to take a shortcut in having to set my indicators up, I'm just going to copy this guy and just work with that. Now I'm no longer looking for the plots being equal, so I'm going to set these to 0, and I'm actually looking for the widest to be greater. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the tightest plot to be greater than the widest plot. So set that to 1, and the opposites for the shorts. And I need to take off my displacement because I want to look at the current bar. And I need to set a difference. So I guess at least 1 tick ought to work. And let's see how this works out here. All right, let's see. Yeah, so when the tightest bottom is above the widest plot, we're getting a long signal, and here we're getting a short signal here because the tightest top is below the widest plot here. So this is all looking good. Now if I turn both of them on, there we go. So we got a long plot here, and we can see we got a short plot here. We got a short plot here because this this higher high was detected as our widest plot. So once again, remember, this is all. This can whether you want to use this as your highest high, all depends on how you have your SI swing indicator set. All right, so if you wanted to use this higher high, you'd have to adjust your indicator to look back a further number of swings. Yeah, so that's it on price. Now the other part of the question was to do the same thing, but for the MACD. Right, so we wanted to look for, let me mark it here. We wanted to look for this point. So we can see how the MACD slightly made a higher low right here. on that point right there. And we can see I have the indicator. You can see I have the MACD fed into the SI swing high-low indicator. So marking it on the chart here. And let's see, and here's another example. So here is a lower high right there. So we're looking for these 2 points on this MACD indicator. That's the other part of this question. All right. So I have the solvers already set up. I have the outputs already set up. The only thing I need to change is the indicator that we're analyzing. All right. So what I could do for this guy, and let me rename this. This guy is looking at a 1 displacement. Actually, so once again, I like to, if I'm using a displacement with my solvers, I like to put it in the name. So that way when I'm working on my logic board, I can tell which solver has a displacement. So actually, I'm going to refine this even more. So okay. All right, so back to looking at the MACD. So I'm going to take this and copy it down, and I'm going to be looking at the MACD on this, and so I'll just work with one at a time here. Now you can see on the chart, right, we're still working with the SI swing high-low indicator, but we're just feeding the MACD into it. So to do that with BloodHound, pretty simple. I already have it set up the way I want it. All I have to do is nest the MACD into it. So I can select the MACD, and I can nest the MACD into it. And let's see, actually, I think, yeah, I modified the plots of the MACD so I'd get more higher lows and lower highs. So I set it to 12, let's see, 6, 12, and 5. So let me change my MACD settings here to 6, 12, and 5. And we're looking at the MACD, so that's already set correctly. So there we go. So we nested the MACD plot into the SI swing high-low indicator. And I need to do the same for indicator B. And just remember, when you're nesting, don't double click. Hit the nesting button. So 6, 12, and 5 for my settings. Let me turn those guys off. And let me just take a look here, make sure the plots are looking correct. So I can see down here when the tightest and the widest plots are equal, I'm getting a long signal like I want. And here I'm getting a short, let's see, actually easier to see right here. So I'm getting these two short signals when the tops are equal. Remember, it's displaced by 1, so that's why this first dot is not showing a short, because I'm displacing it by 1. Oh. All right. So now I need to copy this solver and convert this one over to the MACD. So let me just nest the MACD into this guy. And oh, I need to select it. There we go. 6, 12, and 5. My plots are already set up correctly. And set that to the MACD. 6, 12, and 5. All right, and let's just take a look at this. Let's see. It's the only one on. Okay. Oh, so remember, now one thing to keep in mind is that the first two solvers were working with price. The two solvers here that I made copies of is working with an indicator value. So we want to change our quantity value here on both solvers. So instead of looking at, well, I guess since we're using 0 and 0, it doesn't really matter, but the proper thing to look at is when we're looking at an indicator value on a subchart, you don't really, an indicator value on a subchart doesn't work in ticks. Ticks is for price action, for price movement. So when you're working with indicators below the price panel, you want to use points. So really, these should be set to points. Set those both to points. Okay, now, and what clued me into this is you see this half, you see BloodHound's kind of partial output in here. That's because I'm working with ticks. Let me change those over to points. There we go. Now, let's see, 1 point. Oh, that's right. And we're working with the MACD. So the MACD here is working in like 0.01 increments. So let's put that to like I don't know, 0.001. There. That looks better. So now with this, there's like a point, let's see, yeah, that is like almost a 0.01 difference between, 0.001 difference between those two plot lines. So, all right, now let me turn both of these on. And so let's see, I'm just looking at the signals. And I can see, so for the end, when we're looking at the indicator, I have some areas here that I'd like to filter out. Let's see. Yeah, so I don't really want this signal. All right, so what happened is our indicator made a lower low, but our tightest plot was still up above, and so we got this separation, which gave us a long signal, which we don't really want. Yeah, so it'd be good to filter this out. All right, so let's work on that in just a moment here. Well, actually, I'm running out of time, darn it. But let me turn everything on and see what happens here. Yeah, this is a pretty simple version, and so everything, so price action and your indicator have to, both give you a signal on the same bar, which is kind of hard to do, right? Typically, price and indicators are typically lagging price action, unless you really have a fast-moving indicator, and then the indicator can keep up the price. So to make this a little better, what you'd have to do is you'd have to take your solvers that are looking at price, and you'd have to create copies of them and change your displacement so that they're looking back a little further in time to try and match up with your indicator. Remember, your indicator is going to be lagging behind price. So you're going to need to change the look back or the displacement of your solvers that are looking at price for that. So let me kind of give show you I guess a good structure for doing that. So let me add an AND node in there, and put my solvers on here. Plug these guys in. Alright, so these two are looking at price. And let me throw another AND node. So these are looking at the indicator. And if I need both of them to, if I need price and the indicator to both occur at the same time, I have to plug them both into an AND node, and then in like that. And so essentially what I just built right here is essentially the same as what I had going right here. But what we want to do is we want to build this same structure right here, but to look back one bar, one additional bar. So let's let me name this. So this is looking at price. Oops, price. And this one's looking at the MACD. Alright, so what I need to do is I'm going to have to make a copy of these solvers and change their displacement. So we go back to here, copy them. So this is going to be now a displacement of 2. Change the name on it. And make a copy of this guy. And let's see, whitest, yep, that's right. So we're going to change this to a look back of 1 displacement. 1, set that to 1. All right, now go back in here and I need another AND node. And now we want to allow for either or one of these conditions to be true. So what we need to do, so if either one of these conditions are true, because we can see right now the way it's connected, we are getting signals. So we can't have this set of solvers and this set of solvers true at the same time, because think of this set of solvers as looking at the current bar. This set of solvers is looking back one bar. So all four of these conditions can't be true at the same time because they're looking back, or they're looking at different bars. So we need to join them together with an OR node. So we drop an OR node in there, and plug that in. Plug that in, and I need to disconnect this guy. There we go. Alright. That doesn't look pretty, so let me just disconnect that. There we go. Well, actually, that was good. You can see now, because this guy's looking back one bar, and let me name this guy. So this is price with a 1 displacement, or 1 bar back. Alright, let's just say 1 bar back. So we can see that now we're getting double signals from these two set of solvers, which are looking at the price. So let me plug the MACD solvers back in here, and there we go. Now we got our signal here. It's 1 bar late, but that's because the MACD was a little lagging right here. So that's, there you go. So that's how we take care of that. All right, let's take a look at this lower high on price. We did get a lower high on the indicator. Let me take a look at these solvers here. All right, I'm going to mark it with an arrow. So it occurred on this bar. Now let me take a look at the price solvers. And let's see. So I can see price didn't get detected until 1 bar afterwards. So I'd have to create another set of these solvers here. So let me do that real quick, and I am quickly running out of time. So I'm just going to kind of fly through this just to show you. So 3, 3, 3. This gets changed to 2. Change that to 2. Go back to our logic node. Oops. All right, drop these solvers. Oops. Drop the solvers back on there. Throw in another AND node. And I'm going to copy that. Paste that in there. So now we're looking back 2 bars. And connect our leaders up. Plug that into the OR node. Let's see. Okay, now looking. Yeah, we're still looking at price. We're still looking at price. All right. So this red arrow marked when the MACD is detected, and I can see, let's see here. Oh, oops, I got it backwards. The MACD actually came first before price. Yep. Okay, shoot. Let me make a copy of these two guys. Thankfully, this can be done pretty quickly in BloodHound. So, let's see. This is going to be a 1 displacement. Alright, jump back to our logic board. Alright, let me disconnect this guy for now. And pan up a little bit. Alright, drop the solvers on here. I'm going pretty quickly, so it's a good thing this is recorded. Alright. So MACD 1 bar back. So now that I have two sets looking at the MACD, I'm going to have to use an OR node, join these guys together, and let's see, this guy's looking at the MACD. Let's plug this guy in here. There we go. Okay, so now we have a short from the MACD that now lines up with when the price action is detected here. So this, right? So this arrow's marking when the price action is detected, and this arrow's marking when the indicator is detected. And we can see I did a look back on the MACD, so now we have a short 1 bar forward. All right, so I should be able to disconnect that later. Plug that in there, plug that in there, and there we go. Okay, so now this lower high was detected right here on this bar. So looking back multiple bars is sometimes what you need to do when you're trying to get, price action in alignment with an indicator. So remember, essentially all indicators are lagging indicators. Some indicators claim to be able to try and predict the future, but once again, they're predicting the future. So, all right, guys, I'm going to have to wrap it up with that. So, Jeremy, if you got anything to add real quickly? And I'm just going to look through these questions and see if I can answer them. Just give you a verbal answer. Let's see.
Sure thing, Zach.
Randy. Yep. Looks like Randy was trying to help me out along the way. Thanks, Randy. I was moving too fast to read your guys' comments. All right, Gary. Yeah, so that kind of answers that. Maybe next week we can pick this up and we can work on filtering out, like this guy here. And actually, this one was valid. I think this one's valid here. This guy here, because we got a higher low. Yeah, so this was a valid signal. We did get a higher low. And let's see. Well, no, we didn't get one on the MACD. So, yeah, we'd like the MACD to filter this guy out. So we'll see if we can refine this a little further next week. So let's see, what other comments we got here. All right. Thanks, Randy. You're welcome. And you're welcome, Gary. Okay, well, Jeremy, it's all yours. If you got any other last comments to mention?
No, not really. Just again a reminder that we're going to be having that webinar on Tuesday, October 9th. And let me see if I can get that link back up for you guys here. And I'm going to throw it to the chat window. Pardon me, folks.
I guess I'll make the comment here that I'll save these templates here for the workshop, so you guys will be able to download these templates once we get this recorded workshop up on the website. So I'll save these templates now.
Yeah, again, so just before we head off there, I did just put the link into the chat window there, and again, it's basically a sales presentation telling you how what BloodHound can do for you. And a lot of you guys have probably seen the presentation in some form or another, but if you haven't, feel free to join us. But you know, also pass along to your buddies or your friends that you know that may be interested in looking at BloodHound and see if this tool might be useful for them, because the more users that we have using this, the more of a community we can build, and the more we can sort of help each other out. And the users also, they're a very important part of the development process as well, like creating new parts, new features to the tool itself, because we listen to you guys. We listen to what you have to say in terms of how to improve it and what features to add, and it never ceases to surprise us, kind of what you guys can come up with in terms of ideas. It's fantastic. So, without any further ado, I guess we'll just end it there, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks a lot.
See you later.